Introduction. Ever since that first day he stepped foot on her decks as a young recruit in 1942, Hans Goebbeller's life and soul revolved around U-505. During the war he sent hundreds of photos and mementos of his experiences aboard the submarine back to his parents for safekeeping. After the war he meticulously collected every article or passing reference written about her. This book is entirely the results of his efforts to memorialize his beloved boat. Hans was never shy about expressing his pride about U-505 and about the U-boat service in general. In the climate of harsh political correctness that dominated post-war Germany, he was often made to suffer because of his refusal to demonstrate the expected shame or repentance. He would have none of that, he said, because none was called for. Till the very end of his life, Hans steadfastly defended the bravery and devotion of his comrades in the German Navy, no matter what the personal cost was to him or his career. "I'm no chameleon," he was proud of saying. When U-505 was enshrined as a monument at Chicago's Museum of Science and Industry in 1954, Hans vowed to move near her one day. True to his word, when he retired 30 years later, Hans moved his family from Germany to a suburb of Chicago. Once there, Hans organized the first reunions of the crews of U-505 and the American ships that had captured her on June 4, 1944. Unbeknownst to many, he had also been gathering materials and writing his memoirs of life aboard U-505. Hans was generally satisfied with the published accounts of his boat's history. During the 1950s, Daniel V. Gallery, commander of the task force that captured U-505, wrote a detailed history of the incident titled 20,000 Tons Under the Sea. Gallery's version is generally accurate, though Hans disputed his conclusion that the crew on U-505 was suffering from low morale. Hans was also pleased with the short memoir written by his friend and fellow crewmate, Hans-Joachim Decker, whose account was published as an article for the U.S. Naval Institute Proceedings entitled 404 Days, The War Patrol Life of the German U-505. All of this changed, however, with the appearance in 1986 of a book by Lawrence Cortese called U-505 Victory. In Hans's opinion, the book was filled with one egregious factual error after another. Horrified at what he perceived to be a perversion of his boat's historical record, he accelerated the pace of work on his own autobiography to correct the historical record. Supplementing his remarkable memory with a copy of U-505's logbook and interviews with many of his fellow crewmates, Hans produced a 300-page manuscript of his wartime adventures aboard the boat. For 10 years Hans painstakingly penned his memoir. In the meantime he had moved south to Central Florida because of his wife's health, and that is where we met in early 1996. Hans allowed me to interview him for an article that appeared in the July 1997 issue of World War II magazine. The piece was very well received and prompted Hans to seek my help in writing his autobiography in preparation for publication. I was honored to do so. Throughout the rewriting of his manuscript, I stayed utterly loyal to Hans's uncompromising demand that this book be a completely factual account of his wartime adventures. Throughout our collaboration, he steadfastly refused every temptation to censor or romanticize his experiences. I warned Hans that he sometimes came across in the narrative as a less than sympathetic character. No matter, he insisted the book must be true to his experiences, blemishes and all. What emerged is an authentic slice of life, a unique perspective on a critical point in history that has rarely been allowed to be expressed fully or honestly. It is a complex depiction, one that may displease those who seek to portray the German fighting man as either an inhuman monster or heroic Superman. At its core, Hans's story is the tale of an ordinary young man's reactions to extraordinary circumstances. In its own way, it reflects the experiences of an entire generation of youngsters sent to war regardless of nationality. Sadly, Hans Goebbels' 75 years of life on this earth ended on the morning of February 14, 1999. Cancer and the noxious brew of chemicals doctors called a cure had whittled his once muscular body to a pitiful, frail shell. On that chilly winter morning his weakened heart finally gave out. His wife carried him to the living-room couch, where he momentarily regained consciousness. Lying cradled in Erika's loving arms, Hans's eyes suddenly grew large and wide, as if staring at an incredible sight hovering over him. "No, not yet, not yet," he begged. A moment later he was gone. No one who knew Goebbels thought his last words were an expression of fear. Hans had faced death many times, always unflinchingly. No, he was not afraid of dying. His words conveyed his anxiety that the writing of this book was not yet complete. In his later years, setting the record straight about U-505 and the men who served on her was his one and only ambition in life. My great sadness is that he did not live long enough to see this book in print. Steelboat Iron Hearts offers the most complete and accurate account of U-505, the first enemy ship captured on the high seas by the United States Navy since the War of 1812. I think Hans would be pleased. John P. Vanzo, Ph.D., Bainbridge College. P.S. to Hans. Auf Wiedersehen, my old friend. Wherever in the cosmos your spirit sails, may you always have a hand's breadth of water under your keel.